Everyone says that pre-foreclosures are the best deals in real estate, but very few people actually show you what one looks like. So today I'm here with Cortland Brown, and we're breaking down one we just closed from start to finish. Cortland, thanks so much for joining today.
Yeah, of course.
I'm super excited about this deal because it really marks a transition for our team away from strictly creative deals and into some of the more traditional wholesale deals, which I feel like is a little bit backwards, but we are doing it. So tell us a little bit more, like what is pre-foreclosure? What does that mean?
Yeah, so I mean, one strategy people do to find deals is they go to public records and find pre-foreclosure and foreclosure deals. And what that is basically when a homeowner of any kind, and there's a variety of these. I mean, there's a bunch of different lists, but I won't get into too many of them. But basically, when you get behind on your mortgage payments, you are given a notice of default. And when that happens, it is public record that there's been a notice of default. So that gets recorded at the county, and people can see that. Anyone could get online and find that for you, and that would be pre-foreclosure. So typically, there's a I don't know 3 to 6 month period where you're in pre-foreclosure. So
Okay.
there hasn't been an auction date yet. They're just warning you, like, hey, you better get this paid, or we're going to go into foreclosure. I think each mortgage company probably has slightly different rules, and they all have to follow whatever the state or federal guidelines are. But I've seen foreclosures happen at like 90 days. But I've seen like this one, for example, that we're going to break down. He was 2 years behind on his mortgage.
Two
I
years.
have no, I don't know how he went that long, but yeah, it was like 24 months. The first time I called the mortgage company with him, they're like, your payment was due from like May of 2024 or 2023. I don't know. It was, yeah, whatever, 2024. It's 2 years. And so, anyways, but basically, when that happens, those people, fortunately and unfortunately, they get bombarded by realtors to sell their house, by wholesalers hoping to find a deal. Um, One thing that's cool about this strategy that we'll show you guys is that we didn't have to be some sharky person who's like, hey, I'll give you 50 cents on the dollar of your home.
Mhm.
We kind of strategize. You said, we do more traditional. I agree, but I think we were very creative on this deal, thanks to help of some people who helped us out on the deal, Bobby, for example, and we'll get more into kind of how he helped. But yeah, so basically anything that's pre-foreclosure or foreclosure, these are people who've been given a notice of default from the bank, and we call them and offer assistance. We've probably, since we started doing this, probably last October timeframe, we've helped more people just stay in their house by saying, hey, look, here's a strategy you could use that wouldn't involve anyone buying your house. You can stay in your home, do this. And if they do that, they've stayed. We probably help more people just stay than deals we've done. So, I know people, probably have mixed feelings about people calling people in foreclosure. However, I mean, I feel like we've helped a lot of people, and even this seller would say we helped them. Like, it was not like we didn't get them money and help them, and they're able to move on. They also got money for a house that might have struggled to sell themselves, and everything else. But we can kind of dive into that as we go along.
Yeah. And so I know I've heard a couple of different things of notice of default, notice of trustee sale, auction date. Can you tell us like how those things progress?
Yeah. So at least again, I'm newer to this too. So if I'm getting someone in the comments can tell us if we're wrong here. But typically, what we see is notice of default. That can happen at 31 days. You missed a payment one time. I think most of the time, mortgage companies probably more like 2 months, that I've seen. And the notice of default is literally like, you've missed a payment. Here's how much you have to get caught up. It's a recorded thing that says this is what, and that's part of the state law. And every state's going to be slightly different in this. In Utah, I think they can give notice at 31 days, and then they have to wait till 90 days before they can foreclose. Like, technically, most will go longer than 90 days. But anyways, so default will be that, or that's the notice of default. The notice of trustee sale, that is, I see that intertwined, honestly, with the notice of default, but typically that happens once the mortgage company's gone, cool, now they're 90 days behind. We're hiring an attorney, a trustee, who's now going to facilitate the foreclosure. It's a foreclosure trustee. And they've now been given a notice that they have an auction date. That auction date, again, I rarely have seen them shorter than 6 months, but I've heard that. And then up to, like I said, this one's 2 years into it. Um, but yeah, that's a notice, another recorded notice that now you have an auction date, and your time is literally ticking down to that date. And you have to figure out how to either reinstate this loan, meaning pay back all the behind payments, And the kicker is once a trustee's involved, there's going to be more fees also. It's not just, hey, I'm behind 3 months. That's this much mortgage payment. It's like 3 months plus they just hired an attorney who's $1,000 plus he's filed something that's another $500. So there's, I mean, every month or every 15 days too, that number increases. Every time that attorney's got to touch something, the fees go up. So it's the math is kind of interesting that way
Yeah.
when you're looking at it. And if you don't know that, you can get in trouble being like, cool, I'll give you this offer. And then you go to close and you're like, oh crap, there's another $5,000 here we have to cover. We've run it out on a couple other deals we've done that were in foreclosure, where there was a trustee involved. So that's the notice of trustee sale. And then foreclosure is just, that's the day that it goes to auction and you no longer own your home. In fact, this is crazy. We had one house a seller I've been working with for like a few months go to foreclosure today. And that was a whole nother story. But basically, we had an offer. She liked the offer. She understood it. I think she had some other stuff going on, just put her head in the sand and didn't sign anything and wasn't able to move forward. So, like, unfortunately, it came to that day and there's just nothing we can do. She probably could have filed bankruptcy this morning if she'd been able to file it quick enough. But, anyways, that's here nor there. Just kind of an interesting anecdote that happened today.
Yeah. Wow. So tell me a little bit more about how you found this particular deal that we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, this deal actually was a lead we bought.
Okay.
We bought a bunch of leads from Jerry Norton, yeah, famed Jerry Norton. He has this program where he gives you like I think it's 10 leads a day. And we actually found a lot of deals. We found a handful of deals with his leads that we used for a couple months. The only reason we stopped using his leads were that they were just all over the place and I think we just felt too scattered when we were doing it. But this one, I don't know, we probably got this lead in November of last year. And I think that our acquisitions guy, Caesar, made contact with the sellers like in December, January timeframe. And that's when I kind of jumped into the deal.
Gotcha. And we're recording this in July. So this is, it
Yeah,
sounds,
this was a long deal.
yeah, and I know you're going to walk us through that. Now, I know you mentioned Jerry Norton and his leads. Are there other ways to find deals like this? Like, can you get that list that you said it's public?
Yeah.
And how can you find
So this is like I said, this is a public record list, so it's free to any. I mean, you can log on to the county recorders in most counties and find notice of default. You could go to foreclosure.com and I think it's like $20 a month, and you can see foreclosures in your area. So those are some ways. We use PropStream to pull foreclosure leads. I mean, that's what we've done. Jerry Norton had these leads. His were kind of a whole bunch of different things, but this one happened to be a foreclosure situation. Trying to think how else people can find these leads. They could, if they, I mean, you call a title company or you're good friends with someone at a title company, they'll send you the leads. I have a local title company here in Utah that sends me all the notice of defaults every week. We get an updated list of the notice of default for Utah. And then you might have to skip trace them depending on where you're sourcing these leads. You might have to go find the numbers for the actual sellers.
Okay.
That's probably the bigger step than finding, like, anyone can find the address, but then it's finding the number. But I mean, skip tracing is not, there's a million different websites where you can skip trace too. So I think there's so many ways to find these leads.
Yeah, and I think if you're local too, you could door knock, right?
Correct. Which is honestly, I've never done it, but everyone who does it says it's like super, super good to go door knock.
Yes.
And I was gonna say the other thing too is you could do a lot of leads that come through any of the like PPL or PPC, which is pay per click or pay per lead leads. A lot of those are pre foreclosure. These are
Okay.
people who are in foreclosure, panic button now, and they're like, "How do I sell my house as fast as possible?" So it seems like a lot of leads that I've seen in PPL, even the ones that we did, they were in foreclosure.
Okay. And then I know this deal was in Texas. What's a good target market for things like this if someone's looking to get into pre foreclosures or calling
Yeah,
foreclosures?
I honestly think you could find foreclosures anywhere. They're all over the country. Obviously, bigger cities are going to have more foreclosures. Also, bigger cities can be easier to sell houses. Like, you go find a foreclosure in some town with 300 people in it. Okay, cool, but then what are you going to do after you've acquired this or fixed it up or who knows whatever exit strategy you decided to use. So I think for me it's any major city or probably secondary or even tertiary markets where there's a decent rental market or just housing market in general. However, equity is going to say how much you as a buyer wholesaler could potentially make, and buying in markets where there just isn't as much equity is going to make these maybe there's going to be still probably the same amount of foreclosures, but the upside might be less than, let's say bigger cities in California, or even Salt Lake is probably an example of places with a lot of equity versus, Georgia, some of the Midwest. These are going to be homes where maybe they have 50% equity, but that's still only, 50 to 75 grand for some of the, mid-level homes versus homes in areas where they're, worth $500,000 to $1 million. So, but again, I really think you can find foreclosures everywhere. And then it's kind of what fits your strategy as far as how you want to work with sellers, or buy their houses or sell their houses.
Yeah. So you mentioned that this homeowner had been in this situation for a couple of years. What can you give us any more specifics about this particular homeowner situation that made this a good fit for the strategy?
Yeah. So this homeowner had I don't know all the details, right? But he'd been divorced. His wife had moved out, so he immediately had less income in his house. The
Mm.
house that we're talking about too, and we'll put a picture of it. I can, if you DM me if you ever want to see a picture, I can send you whatever details. But so this house was like a $500,000 home when he bought it. His mortgage payment's $5,500 a month. Texas, he had a good interest rate, but Texas, he pays $25,000 in insurance alone, or excuse me, taxes alone, every year.
25,000?
Yes.
Oh,
Well, maybe that was between insurance and taxes, but still, it's a lot.
that's a lot.
Like, I think it's like 3 grand into escrow every month or something like that on this house. So yeah, wild. Texas, high taxes. So anyways, yeah, loss of income to help him pay for the house. He was self-employed, and I believe his business was, he's in construction type stuff. So it ebbed and flowed how much income he was getting too. Like he was telling me, he's like, yeah, even right now I'm waiting on this like $50,000 check. And as entrepreneurs know, sometimes that's how it goes. Like one day you have nothing, the next day you have 100 grand, the next day you have nothing again, right? Like sometimes that's just the way it goes. So that was kind of his situation. I honestly have no idea how he got the bank to go for 2 years. That still is like a puzzle to me. I think he applied for a loan mod like a year in, but then didn't do the loan modification, which actually probably was in our favor that he didn't do the loan modification because it made our holding costs slightly less once we got to it.
Mhm.
I don't think he was approved for the loan modification. We tried. I'll get into this, but we tried to apply for one while we were doing the deal as well. We encouraged him to apply for one just to see if they would do it. We didn't apply for it. I shouldn't have said that. But when he applied, he was like, "Well, I don't have an income statement. I don't even have a bank account. I don't have proof of income at all this year." And those are all things you need to do a loan modification. And what a loan modification is, for those of you that don't know, a loan modification is where a bank's going to try to work with you to stay in that house, and honestly it's going to benefit them more than you, most likely. But they'll do things like say, hey, you're behind 6 months. If you can now pay that and you can prove it, here's what we'll do. We'll put that 6 months on the back end of the loan. We'll re-amortize the loan. So if you had a 3% interest rate, maybe now you have a 7% interest rate. They might change how many years it's amortized for, depending on what they need to make the payment better. Most of the time I've seen it, it's like, okay, the payment's better, but it might mean this person's going to pay on their house for an extra 10 years or something.
Mhm. Okay.
However, I have seen it where the payment gets worse in a loan mod. So you definitely need to be careful in doing it. But if you want to stay in your home, it's not necessarily the worst situation, depending on your circumstance.
Especially if things have changed, right? Like maybe he did get that big lump sum and now he has more consistent income and can pay
Yeah.
before. You never know what the scenario.
Yeah, or a job loss, or they were in the hospital for a while and now they're back to their job and they're not in the hospital and they can afford their payments. Like, okay, cool. A loan mod might actually be a good scenario for you. I
Definitely.
I like them for that. I don't like that the banks, like I saw one where they re-amortized it for 40 years rather than 30. So now this person's gonna be paying on it a lot longer, a lot
Mhm.
more interest. The bank's gonna make a ton more money, and the payment went up. So like in
Okay.
that scenario, I'm like, how are you actually helping this person?
Right.
Like it's like this, it's like fake help a little bit.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about the specifics with the numbers on this deal.
Sure. So let me break down this deal. So in January, we found this deal. Um, when we talked to the seller, he's like, I want 560,000 for my home. ARV, after repair value, on this house is probably somewhere in the range of 750 to 800, maybe even over 800 if it was like mint condition. Um, However, his house was not in perfect condition. The pool was gross. The waterfall was gross. He had a roof that had leaked a few years prior, and so in like multiple rooms there was like, sheetrock where you could tell there'd been water damage. Which, and when you're selling a house, water is like definitely, you don't want that. All of it had been fixed, but it doesn't matter because it's in the ceiling. Um, they were super hard on the house. Like,
Mhm.
it was not a hoarder house by any means, and I wouldn't even. I mean, honestly, I have 5 kids. It's probably like what my house looks like just kids beating the crap out of a house, right? Like that's. I didn't look at it and go ooh, but I was like, oh yeah, they were not like super soft on this house by any means. There was a family like living it up in this house. So like, there was dings in the walls. There was some broken light fixtures. Like nothing crazy, but definitely not like this super clean house.
Mhm.
He was looking at, when we made contact with him in January, at least when I got involved, his auction date was March 5th, I believe, something like that. March 5th or 7th. In Texas, auctions are the first Tuesday of every month, or the second Tuesday, one of those, first or second Tuesday. So that was his auction date. I think we were negotiating this like first week of February, like we were 1 month away. And so what the numbers look like when I originally met him, his underlying balance was 403, but his
Okay.
reinstatement was about $125,000, give or take a few thousand.
Okay.
I was 2 years behind. His monthly payment was about $5,500 a month, and at that time we were like, okay, cool, let's look at this from like, will a wholesaler buy this cash? And if we were to lock it up, he had an offer that would basically put um, $40,000 in his pocket. He had an offer from somebody else. And I was like, I think we could get you more. I think our strategy is going to be slightly different than theirs. They're just going to do cash and just give it to you up front. But they were also probably a wholesaler. The way it sounded like they were going to put under contract and try to then turn and sell it to somebody else. Um, Somebody else would have to buy this and be into it probably like $580,000 cash, and then figure out how to make the margin from that 580 to 750, 800 range, and also do all the repairs and also the holding costs of 580,000. Like it's a lot of holding costs on 500K every month. So we were like, hey, what we want to do is we want to take over your loan. We'll reinstate it, which means we'll catch it up, and then we'll fix it up. Kind of what people refer to as a novation. Like we're gonna team up with you. We're gonna get you your 25K. He was gonna move out once we paid him 20. Well, when we started out, it was actually 40K. We had to renegotiate once we realized how bad the house was. Once we got someone inside. However, we offered him, that amount of money. Once he got his cash, he was going to leave and then let us do the repairs. So we knew he wasn't in the house. The novation agreement basically says we're partners and then we're going to sell this together.
Okay.
So we had gone back and forth. For those of you familiar with creative, we were like, well, we'll do a seller financing deal where we take over the underlying mortgage on a wrap. But we kind of like didn't love that, because we were like, we'll have to pay closing costs twice. We're going to have to wait 3 months for an FHA loan when we sell it on the other end. So we were just like, let's not do that. Let's do this novation thing. This is where like some of the big lessons were. So Bobby Siegmiller, who is someone in the creative community, he's been doing a lot of these. He's here in Utah. You and I met him at a meetup here, I think, probably originally. He was kind of the guy I called on this. I'm like, look, this does not work for a traditional sub two that we do. The down payment's like $160,000, and no one's going to do that. And then on the other side of this deal, I can't find a wholesaler who will buy this one and make any money. If we did, it would be like a $5,000 assignment. It'd be super low. And so he was the one that kind of was like, hey, what if we do it this way? This is how I do some deals. We'll do this novation agreement. We'll try to stop the foreclosure. We'll do this stuff. So, anyways, we got on the phone with the seller together. He really liked. I think he just like Bobby is a very trustworthy person. He just like when you meet him, he comes across as just like, I want to help you. That's kind of our goal too. I think it's maybe the way we outsold some of these other offers he have. I don't know, for sure, but it seemed like he was like, I trust you guys. He told Seth a bunch of times, I trust you guys. It makes sense. So we went under contract. Like I said, we went under contract for this around $560,000, but really we were only going to come in with like 170 is what it was, 170. So the 40K to him and 125 to reinstate, so about 170. And then we were going to take it over subject to if we had to, but we were going to try to postpone the auction first. So once we got it under contract, found out the house was like, oh, there's a lot more work here than just paint on the walls. Like probably some carpet replaced, definitely some pool and yard work. Plus, it was just more. What we did when we got under contract is I had two sub two leaders, well, one sub two leader and another wholesaler out that way go look at it and see if they wanted to like partner with us. And both of them were like, "Oh, the spread's not big enough for us to do anything. Like we can't." And it was like a little frustrating because they were very much like, "Oh, this is awesome." And then we got under contract. They're like, "Yeah, no, we don't like it very much, and the market's slow, and it's an expensive for it's in Houston, and in Houston, a $750,000 home is like that's a big. I mean, it's a really nice home. Obviously, in Utah, this would be like a $1.5 million home. So
Wow.
for anyone in Utah who's watching this, that's kind of like it's a big home pool. I think it was 50 or no, excuse me, 4,800 square feet. Like this is a big house.
Yeah, that's huge.
Um, yeah. So we had to go back and renegotiate, and we said, "Hey, we'll get you 25." And this is where I feel like Bobby's experience was really good for me to learn. Is the way the contract was, we were going to give him 25 up front, and then go from there. And Bobby's like, "Hey, let's make sure we have done all of our due diligence before we release the 25." And then what we found out was his wife was there all along, but she kind of jumped in and was like, "Oh, you can't give him 25 because he owes me 10."
Oh,
And we're like, "Okay, so wife gets 10." Boom. Then there was this like we got a letter from the insurance that there was 4 grand owed to insurance. Okay, so we had to take four grand for the insurance, and then he was behind 4 grand from the HOA, so we like took that away. And so then it's like, well, hey man, there's only very little left for you, but I don't feel comfortable just giving it all to you now because I don't know what other things are going to pop up we don't know about and you don't know about or that you haven't disclosed.
right.
So we ended up just releasing money like as he needed it. Like he had to get his car. He was having to make a car payment, so we released some money for a car payment. We were working with him, but also trying to protect ourselves. Right, we were trying to do both. So we were releasing money as he needed it, but also protecting ourselves. It took him a lot longer to move out of his house than he had originally thought. Um, so that delayed us being able to get in there and do the work we needed to do also. Um, Meanwhile, so this is kind of happening. We're under contract, trying to sell it, and the foreclosure is still looming. 3 weeks out from when we go under contract, essentially. Then that's where we got on the phone with a mortgage company. We literally sent them a contract saying, "Hey, here's a cash contract. This is how we're buying it. We're going to help him sell it. We need to delay the auction till June." And they actually approved it. So we stopped the foreclosure like the weekend before, and they
Yeah.
approved us a delay. Yeah, they approved a delay till June, the first week of June, which
Wow.
was good because, like I said, it took him a lot longer to move out. So this was March. We started doing work on this property in April. So
And
it
you,
took him a month to get out. Yeah, so this is a cool part. So we went to Squad Up Summit in March, and we were still trying to figure out if we had to just like we'd gotten a delay on the foreclosure, but we didn't really have a partner. We didn't really like doing the work in another state. It was like, we don't really, it just nothing was like falling into place. At Squad Up Summit, we met these two guys from Canada that were like, "Hey, we want to get involved." And Bobby's like, "Hey, we have a deal you could get involved in. If you guys want to bring the money to this deal and do the work, you guys are contractors, come do the work. Um, that's how you guys could get involved. We'll figure out how to split it between all of us." And they were like, "Yeah, let's do it." So they had one of them flew down the second week of April and spent a week there, kind of doing some odds and ends himself, but mostly lining up contractors for everything we needed done. So we were going to repair all the flooded areas. We ended up having to repaint the entire exterior of the house
wow.
per the HOA fees we were getting because it wasn't earth tones.
Oh gosh.
Because it was white and black, so we had to get rid of all the black, and then and the back of the house was still pink from the original, like before we even bought it. It was it was weird.
Tone? I don't know.
Yeah. So, anyways, and it was really hard because these partners of ours, they do like super nice high end custom homes in Canada where they're at, and they get down there and they're like, "Well, looking at this is gonna be way more then, we were trying to like be 20K was kind of like our goal for doing this deal. And Bobby and I are much more. I can tell. I mean, I don't know Bobby's. I know that Bobby's done a bunch of stuff, but I'm a DIY person. Like, it's very hard for me to like want to pay for anything. So I was like, no, 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 no. You don't need to pay to do that. Go get some freaking spray paint. Like, I was like, not to make it ugly, but like, let's lipstick. Let's not fix the whole house. This does not need to be the top. I used to be a framer, and this guy always, he had the best line. He said, whenever we were like, I was like trying to make something perfect, he'd be like, it's not the Taj Mahal.
Yeah.
That was his thing. It's not the Taj Mahal, man. Just put it together and move on. And so for us, it was like we needed this house to be as showable and as good as possible, but without like, I'm not redoing the kitchen. We're not going to do all the cabinets in the kitchen. We're not going to redo the bathrooms. Like, we're just going to paint, carpet, exterior paint, make sure there's no flood mess, and then any odds and ends that we can fit in our budget. Cool. That's kind of where we wanted to go. So that's what we did. We tried to be at a 20K budget. So kind of to adjust numbers as this was all going on, we now were under contract to buy this thing at like $540,000. 20K budget for this. We knew we potentially have some holding costs that we were factoring in. So anyways, work goes on. It's ready to list. And we ended up we went over budget by about $5,000, and honestly $4,000 of that was a cleaning like cleaning the house out, because they left way more stuff than they told us they were going to leave. They're like, we'll get it empty, and they just left a ton of stuff. So we needed like a deep clean. That was a big expense, was the cleaning and getting all the junk out. And then the other thing was we actually went over, so that was 25, and then literally meanwhile all this is going on, we have not closed on this property. This is a novation, right? So we're doing a novation with them. And what that means is we're partnered, but we don't have any ownership in this property at this point, other than this agreement that's been recorded with title that it's a novation. And Bobby at this point is going, all right, I think we actually need to close on this subject too. And we tried to postpone the auction further, and they wouldn't postpone. So we were like probably a few days from being done with what we needed to be, but the auction was a few days before we were going to be done, basically. So it was like this, like kind of, we misaligned by a week or two. So we ended up having to reinstate the loan and take the deal over subject to, and basically what people will call this is a subtail. So like a subject to, and then we sold it retail. So subtail, subject to, retail, push it together. That's what that term is.
So now this is ownership that we have transferred at this point.
Correct. So like June 2nd, we closed on it. And this is where it got weird. The Canadians were going to be the ones to fund it, but because they're in Canada, the wire transfer was going to take too long. Mm-hmm. So then we had our other partner. Bobby ended up being our money partner, and he made money on that too. Like, right, we paid interest on that money that he invested. So our total investment we had two money partners essentially on this deal. Total, the two of them put in was around $180,000 between the two of them, is about where we were. That was money given to Jose up front. That was to fund the renovations. That was to reinstate the loan. So that was a big chunk of money on this deal to reinstate this loan. The other part of this is that we went to multiple realtors, and this was an interesting thing. I learned a lot from Bobby on how to negotiate with realtors. I've never really had to do that other than just selling my own house. And it's funny because our original realtor, we were like, we want to sell this house fast, but we don't want to give it away. So like, we want to be on the market for like a few weeks, not a few months, but we also don't want to go under contract day one. Like, right. I don't want to just give it away. And his number that he was coming in was like 670, which we were like, that seems low, but maybe that works out. And then there was kind of some back and forth on commissions and some other things. And in the meantime, Bobby met another realtor and another brokerage there that was awesome, Envision Title. So that we ended up transferring title over to Envision Title. They've been amazing to work with, awesome. And they're the realtor there as well as the broker. Like they were awesome. They were like red carpet. Like they were really good. So when we started talking with them, she's like, "No, we're gonna list this thing at 750." She's like, "Yeah, there are comps lower, like you're saying, but this house is unique. It's the biggest yard." It has the biggest yard of anyone in the area. It has a swimming pool. It has more square footage than all the other comps in the area. Like even at 750,000, we were like $20 under the price per square foot of most of the homes in the area. So,
Wow.
anyways, that all was a huge factor. But what was really cool is we closed on the deal subject to on a Wednesday, and we had it listed with a realtor for sale on the market on Thursday. So it was
Nice.
that quick. The only thing we couldn't do was we couldn't have an FHA buyer. Or, I mean, I guess we could have. If the offer was good enough, we would wait 3 months, you
Right.
know? But the offer would have been good because there is a rule that if you buy a house, you have to own it for 3 months in order for an FHA or a VA buyer to purchase the home.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, so as far as the numbers go, we are in this house roughly $180,000, or excuse me, five. Technically, we own it, so we have the underlying mortgage debt plus the 180 or so grand that we put in, and we were so at this point we're in it about $585,000 all in. That's the rehab, that's the reno, um, that's to reinstate the loan, that's paying the seller, all of that. And then we held it for about a month and a half. So we did have one mortgage payment that went by, and to add to that, we had a little few odds and ends, whatever. We ended up getting it. We ended up getting an offer at 721 that we accepted. When they did their inspection, they like honestly, if you're a realtor, this is a great tool for you. As a seller, worst tool I've ever seen. What they do is it's this website where you can take an inspection report and upload it, and it will then generate a estimated cost to fix every single item on an inspection report. And if you've ever bought or sold a home, those things are 10 pages long, and 90% of them are just normal home stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not trying to like be like, oh, it was this horrible. It was not a horrible report. There was like two major items. It's like maybe we should look at this, and we did. One of the ACs wasn't working very well. They had a leak in the coolant that we had to get fixed. Um, and I don't know. There was some other little item that it was like the electricity to the island in the kitchen. It was like a breaker issue, like just
Mhm.
very simple stuff. But everything else on there was just like, yeah, this is just normal home stuff. Sorry. But they wanted a concession, a much bigger concession than we'd already give. We listed at 750. We accepted at 721. We ended up settling on that $10,000 seller concession.
Okay.
Also, the cool part about their offer was that we only paid the buyer's agent 2%, and our agent was listing it for 1.5%. So we saved some money on the listing fee compared to what some people might. Um, so all in all, we took a deal. Whereas when I first looked at it, I went, I can't do this subject to. I
Right.
can't do this a cash offer on here. And you know what's funny is we even tried. Like we got under contract and we're like, well, we weren't going to do this, but also like if someone will just buy this from us for 10 grand right now, we would do it.
Yeah.
No one we talked to would do it. I mean, we didn't market it heavily, but we didn't find any buyers. So we took a deal that was essentially a dead deal for us, and with the help of Bobby and kind of some creative stuff that we've never done that he's done, we turned it into like a 60K assignment after all of our expenses as well, which I think was an awesome turnaround. It's been the longest deal I've ever worked on too. I mean, January we closed on it Friday, which was what 3 days ago in the middle of July. Um, so I would have loved to make more money than that on this deal because it was so long. But I also take it as learning a complete new way to do these deals. And I know there's other people who do deals this way, but like it's funny because most wholesalers I talk to that are doing pre foreclosures don't do a deal this way. This is still unique. This is still different than how most people will do it. Most people are still just going to say cash offer, low ball, as low as possible, and do it, which is great. But this is another tool in your pocket, and in some cases, it like we can I don't know, we can figure out how to get sellers more money in their pocket. Which if you can do that, that's awesome.
Yeah. And so in this case, the foreclosure never actually happened. Like it never went to auction. So that means that the seller doesn't have that on their record, right? Like it's not
No,
going to show up as a foreclosure.
No, I mean this guy obviously has a year of defaults, which that's going to ding his credit for sure. Like that's not going to ding his credit. He's got 24 late payments essentially. But foreclosure would be like the another nail in the coffin because all those late payments, I don't know how long it takes them to go off. It probably depends on who the creditor is, like if he's going to go get another loan. However, like foreclosure I think stays on for 7 years minimum.
Wow.
And so they avoided foreclosure, us catching it up, and us we made the July payment and then we paid it off. All of those things are going to be massive boosts to his credit. But not only that, when we met the seller in this case, he was like emotionally just done. Like you could tell he's like, just I need to move on with my life. Like I need some money to move on, but even more than that, I just need to get on. Like I felt so bad when I called him about like, hey, your wife says you owe her 10 grand and whatever. Like that call was like, he's like, you know what? Don't even give me any money. He was so mad. He was just like, whatever. I don't even want money. And like I could feel just that like desperation of like,
Mhm.
I don't even care about the money anymore. I just can't have this looming over my head anymore.
Yeah.
And so if you were to ask Jose, or excuse me, if you were to ask, yeah, Jose, whatever, his name's Jose. If you were to ask him, I would guess he'd say, I would have loved to get a little bit more money, but also like, I'm just done with it. I'm happy. Like I got money. I'm out of the house. I was able to move on. Um, and for him as a seller, he had a few things up against his back. He was 3 weeks away from the auction.
Hmm.
There is a very high likelihood he could not have sold that with a realtor in 3 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if he did, it likely would have netted him even less money
Right.
because he would have had to pay realtor fees both on the buyers and listing agent, and he would have had to pay closing costs. It would have been a super lowball offer because the house needed work. So like all of those things worked against him to where like us coming in saved him having to hire any realtors, which probably saved him money. Like we paid for that, on the other end of this. He didn't pay any of the closing costs. We did. He didn't pay. He did pay for the HOA stuff. So there was a few things came out of his side, but most of the stuff came out of our pocket. So those were all benefits to how much cash he put in his pocket.
And I know you've talked about a ton of lessons that we've learned through this process and, for doing future deals. Talk about maybe one more lesson that you learned that you're going to apply to the next deal that's fairly similar to this.
You know what? I'm gonna. Yeah, there. I wish I could find what it's called. So working with Bobby, one thing he taught me that I was like, it's just so smart, and I think so many of us forget this because we get excited about a deal. And he was like I remember I was like a little frustrated at one point, being like, "Are we gonna fund this? When are we gonna do like when are we gonna actually fund and do the whatever? Or like, are we gonna give Jose his money? Like, when are we gonna give him his like all the money And I realized like that was part of the deal. But what Bobby knew that I didn't know is he's like, Bobby's done 1,000 of these. He knows that just like any deal, like, oh, I'll give you the example here. A, stuff can go wrong, and B is this seller likely, if they're in this situation, does not know all of the things they owe. So we need to be extra careful and do extra research to make sure we know all the debt on this property. Because if we go under contract or we reinstate this loan and it comes to find out there's another $30,000 of debt, well, that's just money out of our pocket,
Mhm.
or potentially money that now we have to pay out of pocket, right?
Right.
So it was like, I can't remember the term, the way he said it. He said something like, I work really slow until I have to work fast. Like,
Mhm.
let's be slow and diligent so that when we have to make the decision, we can make it immediately rather than hesitate. So it's like, not that we hesitated or that we worked. I mean, we put it under contract quickly, but I mean, so that was an interesting lesson to me of like, take your time making sure the deal is right, making sure all the as much, and obviously you can't know everything, you never will likely, but make sure you know as much as possible so that when it comes time to like, I have to send this money today, you can send it with confidence,
I love that.
right? I actually looked up, there was a term, there's like some French word. I gotta look it up. I looked it up earlier, and it literally means like proceed slowly with speed. Like that's, it's like some weird phrase, like doesn't really make sense, but it does. It's like, it's kind of like, make sure that everything's in a row so when you have to act, you can act with confidence, basically. And I like, to me, that was such a good lesson of like, when we're looking at deals, especially because we haven't done many deals where we've had to invest money into the deal. Like a lot of the deals we've done have been wholesale deals. Obviously, we've bought a few deals, but those are our deals. But we haven't invested money to then turn around and make that money back immediately.
Right.
And so, just being super smart, I've seen so many people like lose that money. I mean, like just they buy a deal and, oh, whoops, there's an HOA lien for 10 grand. There's our profit.
Yeah.
And if that's your profit, that's really tight. But
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like any number of these things could change it. Had we gone with this other realtor who wanted to list it, 40K less, no, it was like 60K less,
Mhm.
that would have been most of our profit. So
Right.
like we did the due diligence to find the realtor that made sense for us. And I really like that other realtor. So I didn't love being like, we're gonna part ways. Like I didn't love that.
Mhm.
Um, and the part that I left out earlier with our budget was we budgeted 20,000. We went over 5K, and then our mailbox that we just repaired and fixed with stucco got smashed the day before, like a couple days before we were supposed to close, by some dude in his Jeep. So that was another $4,000 expense that we were not planning on.
Yeah.
So, but like that was it. That was fine. We could have, obviously that's not a giant expense, but it's worth having done the slow work so that we could go fast. It made it feel more safe and just like a better deal for all of us.
Yeah. Is there anything you do differently next time something like this comes up? Like anything in hindsight, you're like, dang, we should have done this, but we didn't, and here's why.
Yes, I would. I did not get the authorization from the bank. So every time I called the bank, I had to call the seller, and we called together. And after like the 10th time, that was silly. Because when I was working through trying to stop the foreclosure, there was a ton of phone calls back and forth with the bank. They didn't get our offer, they didn't get the photos, they didn't get, like, there was a lot of back and forth. Banks do not make it easy either sometimes. Like it was just like everything we did was a pain. They're like, "Oh no, you can't email the photos here. You got to email the photos." I ended up having to fax all the photos over
Oh my gosh,
because they
facts.
weren't getting them via email, which I know they got the fax. It was just an email to an email via fax, right? It's like silly. But the email is because there was a link or because there was a photo, then it went to their spam or their whatever, so they couldn't even receive it on their end. It just, like, the whole thing was silly. But after a bunch of phone calls, I was like, that was so dumb. We didn't get the authorization. Finally, we did towards the end, but like that should have been like much earlier on. I'm trying to think if there's any other like major, like we should, like I would have done this different. Um, Probably
Every
nothing. I don't think
different.
anything else.
Yeah.
I mean,
There
there's probably little things we could be like, we could tighten that up, or we could have renovated this differently, or whatever. But none of those are major enough that it's like, I don't know.
Man, that makes a ton of sense. Well, it sounds like there were a lot of, I mean, there's so many things about this deal where it almost didn't happen, so many obstacles could have killed it. And you guys, the whole team really pulled it through. And I think it's a huge benefit to the seller as well as us for this situation. So big kudos and congratulations. I'm super excited.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a fun deal. It's a fun deal to do, a fun deal to close because it was just like you said. It kind of was we've kind of transitioned from these low equity on market deals to these pre foreclosures, and I like the foreclosures. I think there's potentially more money to be made, but I feel like you're helping someone who's really in need a little bit more. I mean, obviously, someone selling their house, they're in need too, but um, you know, some of these situations are like, yeah, help me, like help. Like I don't know what else to do at this point. So that's always like a nice, like, icing on the cake to have someone who's like grateful, like thank you so much for helping us.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, that is awesome. And so if anybody has a pre-foreclosure lead and they need help working it, how could they get in touch with you?
Yeah. So you could message me or Andrea for that matter on Facebook, or just Cortland Brown. Or we do have a website, creativesellersolution.com, where you can submit deals or like JV with us. Honestly, Facebook or Instagram DMs are super easy to reach out to us. So yeah, those are probably the best ways. And it's something we do a lot. Like this deal, we had a JV, like literally someone on this deal, our acquisitions guy on this deal, he made 2,500 bucks for like I think one phone call. Like I mean, he made a lot of phone calls to make that phone call, but it was like one conversation with Jose, got enough information to send it over to me, and then we helped them close it. And so I think for us, we like helping people. And I'll never lie to you. Like obviously, it's two sided. You're bringing us a deal, we're gonna make some money, and you're gonna make some money. So that's kind of the cool part about it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Cool. Well, hopefully, if anyone is listening to this or watching this and they have any leads on pre-foreclosures, definitely send them our way because we would love to help you get those closed, love to help the sellers out, and love to help you make some money. Anyway, well, thanks so much, everyone, for checking out this week. And we will be back to you with more deals that we can break down that me and Cortland have done because we're doing a lot of deals this year. So, see you in the next video.
Thanks.
Hey there, it's Andrea. If you enjoyed this video, hit subscribe so you never miss another one. Thanks.